Hi everyone, Heeran Workman here with Heeran's Home Team. So today's topic for our video blog is how to sell on a rent-to-own basis and exactly, what is rent-to-own. So before I became a realtor in the early 2000s, I actually started my career as a real estate investor. So I have had a lot of experience structuring these deals for my own portfolio as well as for other seller clients as well. So if you have any more questions outside of this video that you have regarding selling on a rent-to-own basis, definitely give me a call and I'd be very happy to answer any questions that you have. All right, so let's get into it. So what is rent-to-own? So selling rent-to-own is finding a buyer and you rent your house to them for a while and then you give them a specific period of time to exercise their option to actually purchase that property and cash you out. So you may be wondering, okay, why would anyone sell rent-to-own? What is the purpose of it? Well, for the properties that are on the market, there's probably less than 1% of the properties that sell on a rent-to-own basis. So some of the reasons why sellers may choose this route is that, number one, they may just be in the business of selling rent-to-own homes and providing alternate forms of financing for buyers. Other reasons might be an equity position that they might have in the home already, probably for tax purposes, and then also slower market conditions. So the last several years has been a very hot market all over the country, and there's been a lot of marketplaces where a home gets listed and it's got multiple offers. Well, as you know, just 10 years ago, it wasn't like that. We had the big real estate crash of 2008, and here we are, 10 years later, and market cycles just happen. So sometimes we are in the height of the market, and then, the next thing you know is the opposite. So when there are so many competing homes on the market, providing the alternate and additional forms of financing that a seller would provide sometimes makes that house stand out and you can get the deal done versus all of the houses just going on the market and then just expiring out, because that does happen sometimes. Okay, so is there a down payment that is collected? It depends. So the down payment is actually called an option consideration, and that's going to depend on the needs of the buyer as well as the seller and the terms that they agree upon. So most of the times we see buyers coming in and putting some sort of an option consideration down up front. So it would be somewhere between, that I've seen, 1 to about 10%. Okay, of the sales price. And then they also come in with a security deposit and, like a normal rental contract. Okay, sometimes the landlord will ask for first month's rent, last month's rent, security deposit, plus the option consideration is what the rent-to-own buyer would typically come in with. And the term that is set for it could be short as a few months, as long as a few years. So what I've seen in my, 15, 18 years doing this is that the shortest amount of time that the seller has provided is 6 months to exercise that option, and the longest I've seen is about 5 years. So really, it just needs to meet the needs of both the buyer and the seller to put these terms together. All right, so let's see here. Okay, so what criteria do sellers typically use to select the right rent-to-own buyer? Well, what I've seen is what type of monthly payment the buyer can afford, as well as income levels, their situation on why they need rent-to-own instead of an outright sale, as well as the amount of option consideration that they can normally come in with. Okay, so let's do the other question. Okay, so why would a buyer want to buy rent-to-own versus just buying outright? Well, typically what that means is that, they are interested in having an ownership mentality. Maybe they don't want to move from rental to rental and, have something that they can call their own home. So, as a seller, you're not giving them legal title to the property. It's no different than, purchasing a brand new car and financing it through a bank. Okay, it's your car to drive, and in your mind you've got ownership of that car, but legally speaking it's not yours until you make that final payment to the bank and they actually give you the legal title. So rent to own is very similar to that. You may have some equitable interest in the property, but the buyer doesn't get final title to the property until they actually cash the owner out and secure their own financing, and then they have legal title. So the situations that I've seen is prior bankruptcies, okay, where they need just a few more years for that to just kind of settle and get off their credit score so that they can get traditional bank financing. I've seen a lot of situations where people are self-employed and they don't have those 2 to 3 years worth of full documentation that they can provide for traditional financing, and they just need a little bit extra time to be able to own their own business and provide the documentation that they need. So there's so many different reasons why a buyer may opt to go that route versus doing an outright purchase. Obviously, if they have the credit score, the down payment, and all documentation that they needed, they probably have a lot more homes to choose from if they were doing an outright purchase. But not everyone has that flexibility. I've structured some deals where people are coming in from other parts of the country. They've got their other house that they need to sell. They really can't purchase one here until they sell their other home. So in the meantime, we do something very short term until they are able to sell their other home, okay? And then let's see here. And then finally, if you are interested in, getting more information about this, going over the pros and cons, obviously this isn't, right for everyone, and there are some risks involved. But if you are trying to sell your home, or you want to sell your home, and you say to yourself, you know what, I might be open to renting the property out instead of just selling. Okay, definitely we should have a conversation about this, because renter mentality versus rent-to-owner mentality is very different. It almost seems the same, but from the buyer's perspective or the renter's perspective, it's a different mindset altogether. So that's what I have for you today. If you want a free consultation on how to sell rent-to-own and to see if that is an option that is good for you and your family, please give me a call or an email. Thanks a lot. Bye-bye.